Welcome to the story. Don't forget to like, subscribe and support me. The sterile scent of antiseptic filled the small medical bay as Dr. Maya Hargrove ran her scanner over the chest of yet another colonist. Her eyes flickered to the readout of abnormal calcium deposits in the bones, tissue degeneration in the muscles. The colonist, a man in his late 30s, sat with his head bowed, eyes hollow. He was one of the 100 or so who had arrived at Novatera over the past few years, full of hope and ambition. Now, he was just another victim of the inexplicable disease sweeping through the colony. Maya sighed as she put the scanner down and glanced at the nurse beside her. Get him on the supplement regimen, same as the others. It'll slow things down, but we need more time. The nurse nodded and escorted the man out of the examination room, leaving Maya alone with her thoughts. This was the 5th patient today, the 20th this week. The symptoms always followed the same pattern of muscle weakness, bone fragility, organ failure. It was as if their bodies were giving up, collapsing from within. But why? Novatera had seemed like the perfect new start for humanity, a lush, resource-rich world in the outer reaches of the galaxy. Maya had been assigned to the colony 6 months ago, right after her medical residency on Earth. She'd been eager to make a difference, to serve on the front lines of human expansion into the stars. But now, she wasn't so sure. The colonists were dying, and she had no idea why. A sharp knock on the door broke her from her reverie. It was Governor Hale, the leader of the colony. His tall, imposing frame filled the doorway, his sharp features creased with concern. Maya, we need to talk, Hale said without preamble. This situation is spiraling out of control. We need answers, and we need them fast. Maya gestured for him to sit down, though she knew he wouldn't. Hale was not the type to relax. I'm doing everything I can, she said, her voice tight. We're running tests on the environment, the food supply, even the air. So far, nothing is conclusive. Conclusive or not, we can't afford to lose any more people, Hale snapped. You've seen the reports. The productivity is down by 30%. If we can't keep up with our quotas, Earth is going to pull the plug on this entire operation. We need to fix this before it gets out of hand. Maya clenched her jaw, fighting the urge to snap back. Hale was under pressure, she knew that. But so was she. I understand the urgency, she said calmly. But this isn't just about productivity. These are people's lives we're talking about. Exactly, Hale said, his voice softening slightly. And if we don't find a solution soon, there won't be any people left. After he left, Maya sank into her chair, rubbing her temples. The weight of the situation pressed down on her, making it hard to breathe. She had always known that working on the frontier of human expansion would come with challenges, but nothing had prepared her for this, a mystery disease with no clear cause and no cure in sight. The next few days were a blur of lab tests and patient evaluations. Maya's team worked around the clock, but they kept running into dead ends. They tested the water supply, the soil, the alien flora, but everything came back clean. There was no environmental toxin they could pinpoint. The disease wasn't caused by anything they could find on Novatera itself. One evening, as Maya was reviewing the latest batch of results in her cramped lab, she received a message from one of her colleagues, Dr. Allen, who was studying the colonists' genetics. You might want to take a look at this, the message read. Maya frowned and opened the attached report. As she skimmed the data, her eyes widened in disbelief. There were anomalies in the DNA of the affected colonists, subtle mutations that hadn't been present when they left Earth. These mutations were accelerating the degeneration of their bodies, and they were spreading faster with each generation born on Novatera. This doesn't make any sense, Maya muttered to herself. How could these mutations have occurred so quickly? Space travel could cause some changes in human biology due to cosmic radiation, but nothing on this scale. The colonists had undergone extensive screenings before they left Earth. Their genetics had been pristine. Her heart raced as a terrifying thought crossed her mind. What if this wasn't just a natural mutation? What if something on Novatera or in the colony's environment was triggering these changes? The next morning, Maya gathered her team for an emergency meeting. "We've been looking in the wrong place," she told them. "This isn't an environmental issue, it's genetic. Something is altering the colonists' DNA." The room fell silent as her colleagues absorbed the information. Dr. Allen, who had sent her the genetic data, spoke up first. "But what could be causing it?" "We've already ruled out radiation, toxins, and pathogens." Maya shook her head. "I don't know yet, but we need to expand our search. There's something here that we're missing." They worked tirelessly for the next few days, focusing their efforts on anything that could be linked to the genetic changes. They scoured the planet for signs of alien technology, unusual energy fields, or anything that might explain the anomalies. And then, they found it. Deep beneath the colony, buried in the rocky ground, was an ancient alien artifact. It had been overlooked during the initial scans of the planet because it was buried so deep, but now, as they excavated it, the artifact pulsed with a faint, rhythmic energy, almost like a heartbeat. Maya stood at the edge of the excavation site, staring down at the strange object. It was covered in intricate carvings, symbols that no one could decipher. The air around it felt charged, as if the artifact was alive in some way. "We need to study this," Maya said quietly. "This could be the key to everything." But not everyone agreed. Governor Hale was furious when he found out about the artifact. "This is ridiculous," he shouted during a tense meeting with Maya and her team. "We don't have time to play archaeologist. People are dying, and you're wasting resources digging up some alien relic." Maya held her ground. "This isn't a waste of time. I believe this artifact is connected to the disease. We need to understand what it is and what it's doing to the colonists." Hale glared at her. "We don't need understanding, Doctor. We need results. I want you to focus on a treatment, not chasing after ghosts." Maya felt her frustration boiling over. "I'm doing everything I can. But if we don't figure out the root cause, any treatment we come up with will just be a band-aid. The disease will keep coming back." Hale's face darkened. "You have 2 weeks. If you haven't found a solution by then, I'm shutting this down." As the days passed, Maya and her team continued their research, though the pressure weighed heavily on them. They studied the artifact in secret, trying to unlock its mysteries. It emitted a low-level radiation that was unlike anything they had seen before, but it wasn't immediately harmful. Still, they couldn't ignore the possibility that it was affecting the colonists' DNA in some way. Then, Maya made a breakthrough. While analyzing the energy patterns emitted by the artifact, she noticed something unusual. It was transmitting a signal. It was faint, almost imperceptible, but it was there. Maya worked late into the night, decoding the signal, and what she found left her speechless. The signal was a message, an ancient warning. The alien species that had once lived on Novatera had faced the same crisis as the colonists, a mysterious disease that caused their bodies to degenerate over time. They had left the artifact as a beacon, a warning to any who might come after them. The message was clear. The planet itself was altering their DNA, forcing them to adapt to the environment in ways that were unpredictable and dangerous. Maya's heart pounded as she realized the full implications. Novatera wasn't just a new world for humanity to colonize, it was changing them. The disease wasn't a disease at all, it was evolution, accelerated by the planet's unique properties. The colonists were being forced to adapt to the alien environment, but the process was flawed. The genetic mutations were unstable, leading to the catastrophic breakdown of their bodies. This realization hit Maya like a punch to the gut. If they didn't find a way to stabilize the mutations, the colony was doomed. Maya stared at the decoded message on her screen, her mind racing. The implications were staggering. not just for the colony but for humanity itself. If Novatera was accelerating evolution, forcing humans to adapt in ways they couldn't control, then the entire foundation of the colony was at risk. The genetic mutations weren't a disease, they were a forced transformation, and that meant any treatment would have to be just as radical. She rubbed her temples, exhaustion tugging at her. They didn't have time to fully understand what was happening. The colonists were dying, and she had to decide: pursue the genetic changes or find a way to stop them completely. Either option came with enormous risks. Dr. Allen's voice broke her concentration. "Maya, you need to see this." He handed her a tablet, his expression grave. On the screen was the latest genetic analysis of a colonist who had been undergoing treatment. The mutations had accelerated even further. His body was restructuring itself, the bones lengthening, muscle fibers changing in density. Maya's stomach churned as she scrolled through the data. "It's speeding up," she whispered. "The planet's environment is pushing the evolution faster than we thought." Allen nodded. "If we don't intervene soon, the colonists' bodies are going to reach a breaking point. We're talking days, maybe hours for some of them." She stood, pacing the small lab. "We need to find a way to stabilize the mutations. If we can control the process, we might be able to save them." "And if we can't?" Allen asked quietly. Maya didn't answer. She didn't need to. If they couldn't stabilize the mutations, the colonists would either die from their bodies collapsing or survive as something else entirely, as something no longer fully human. The next few days were a blur of intense research. Maya and her team threw everything they had into finding a solution. The artifact's signal contained fragments of information about the alien species' own attempts to control the genetic changes. They had created a rudimentary gene therapy that allowed some individuals to survive, though it came with a cost. Their descendants were no longer recognizable as the same species. Maya couldn't let that happen here. The colonists had come to Novatera for a fresh start, but they hadn't signed up to become something else entirely. Still, the clock was ticking. More colonists were falling ill, their bodies deteriorating faster than ever. The pressure was mounting, and Governor Hale's patience had run out. He stormed into the lab one evening, his face flushed with anger. "I gave you 2 weeks, Doctor, and what do we have? More dead colonists and no solution." Maya stood her ground. "We're close, I just need more time." "You don't have more time," Hale shouted. "The colony is on the brink of collapse. If we don't fix this now, Earth will cut us off. No more supplies, no more support. We'll be left to die here." Maya's hands clenched into fists. "I'm doing everything I can, but this isn't something that can be rushed. We're talking about fundamental changes to human biology. If we get this wrong, the consequences could be catastrophic." Hale glared at her, his voice low and dangerous. "You have until tomorrow. If you don't have a solution by then, I'll be taking matters into my own hands." After Hale left, Maya felt a wave of despair wash over her. She had always known that life on the frontier would be hard, but she hadn't expected it to feel so hopeless. She sat down at her desk, staring at the data on her screen. The mutations were too advanced. The genetic instability was spreading faster than she could keep up with. She was running out of options. Then an idea struck her. It was risky, dangerous, but it might be their only chance. If she could use the artifact's energy to trigger a controlled mutation in herself, she could test the effects firsthand. It was reckless, but it would allow her to see if the changes could be stabilized before subjecting the colonists to it. Maya took a deep breath. This was it. She didn't have the luxury of time anymore. If she failed, the colony was doomed. But if she succeeded, she might just be able to save everyone. She prepped the lab for the procedure, her heart racing. Allen, who had stayed late to help, looked at her with a mix of concern and disbelief. "You can't be serious, Maya. This could kill you." "I don't see another option," she said, her voice steady despite the fear gnawing at her. "I can't ask anyone else to risk it, not without knowing it'll work." Allen hesitated, then nodded grimly. "I'll monitor your vitals." "But Maya, If something goes wrong, I know, she cut him off. Let's just hope it doesn't. The procedure was simple in theory. Maya had designed a gene therapy based on the alien species research, modified to human DNA. She would use the artifact's energy to trigger the changes and hope that her body could handle it. As she lay on the lab table, the cold metal against her skin, Maya closed her eyes and focused on her breathing. Alan activated the machine, and she felt a sharp jolt of energy shoot through her veins. Her body convulsed, pain searing through every nerve. Her heart raced, and for a moment, she thought she was going to die. But then, the pain subsided. Her body felt different, lighter, stronger. She opened her eyes and sat up, surprised at how clear everything seemed. Her senses were heightened as she could hear the faint hum of the machines in the background, the soft rustle of Alan's movements. "How do you feel?" Alan asked cautiously, watching her closely. Maya flexed her fingers, feeling the power coursing through her. "I feel good, really good." Alan ran a quick scan of her vitals, his eyes widening as he reviewed the data. "Your body's adapting. The mutations that they're stabilizing." Relief flooded through Maya. It had worked. The therapy had stabilized her DNA, allowing her to survive the changes. She still felt human, but there was something else now, a subtle shift in her biology that made her stronger, more resilient. It wasn't just survival, it was evolution. Over the next few hours, Maya refined the therapy, making it safer for the other colonists. The process was still risky, but it was their best shot. She worked tirelessly, driven by the knowledge that time was running out. Hale had made good on his threat. He had already begun shutting down non-essential systems, preparing to evacuate the colony if necessary. But Maya wasn't going to let that happen. The following morning, she gathered the colonists in the central hub. They were scared, anxious, many of them already showing advanced signs of the disease. Maya stood before them, explaining the situation at the alien artifact, the genetic changes, the therapy she had developed. "It's not a cure," she said, her voice steady despite the weight of her words. "But it's a chance to survive." There was silence, then murmurs of uncertainty. Some of the colonists were hesitant, fearful of what the therapy might do to them. Others, desperate for hope, were willing to take the risk. Governor Hale stood at the back, his arms crossed, watching her with a skeptical gaze. Maya took a deep breath. "I'll go first," she said. "Again, I've already undergone the treatment, and I'm still standing here. If anyone has doubts, I'll do it again. But I believe this is our only chance to save the colony." One by one, the colonists stepped forward. The process was grueling, each person undergoing the same pain and uncertainty that Maya had felt. But as the hours passed, the therapy began to work. The mutations stabilized, their bodies adapting to the changes. Maya watched in relief as the colonists slowly regained their strength, their once weak bodies now thriving in Novator's alien environment. They were still human, but they were something more now, as something stronger, more resilient. They had become the next step in human evolution. As the last colonist finished the procedure, Maya collapsed into a chair, exhausted but triumphant. The colony had been saved, but the future remained uncertain. They had survived, but they had changed. And now, they would have to face the consequences of those changes. Maya gazed out at the horizon, the twin suns of Novator casting long shadows across the landscape. The colony would endure, but what kind of future lay ahead for these new humans? She didn't have the answers, but for now, it was enough to know that they had survived. And survival, she realized, was only the beginning.